I want to call to order the Fire District Board meeting, the workshop of February 3rd. Could you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Spetz, for getting me on schedule.
Someone's got to.
Could we have a roll call vote? Stop a minute.
Meeting.
Could we have the roll call, please?
Aldrich.
Here.
Beckman.
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Brookline.
Here.
Poland.
Here.
North.
Here. And Scott Phelps is in Florida. And he did call me. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of the meeting, and please don't text, as it is against the Open Meetings Act. Could we have an approval of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of the workshop, February 3rd at 4 p.m., 2025.
Second.
A motion by Paul and a second by Fox. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? It's public comment on agenda items only. Is there any public comment?
I had one. I'm very excited to have Chief Brad Brown here.
I love it when you're excited.
Please enter that in the record.
Not excited very often. Okay, so moving on. We have a special guest speaker. Chris, did you want to introduce?
Yeah, sure. So as you know, when I attended Staff and Command, there was almost a week-long session that was on nothing but strategic planning, and it was taught by Chief Brown at the time. And at the time, he had a few less bugles and a couple less acronyms after his name, but he's finished a couple more degrees, and I think he'd be a great person to at least kick off the conversation about strategic planning and get us in the right direction for everything that we need to do. So, without further ado, Chief Brown. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, I'm just heading home from work. I live in Ganges Township, so I
We're
drive.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I like it there. Family farm down there, and I drive through your township about 14 to 16 times a week because my son plays hockey in Holland as well.
We can't get firefighters that live close here.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
Do you know how to do the roundabout?
Oh, yeah. Just go right through the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you're gonna put a target there for you.
Thank you, the plan for that. Yeah, right, I do, yeah.
So, Chris had reached out to talk about strategic planning, and I heard a lot of different things. So, full disclosure, I'm the fire chief up at Grand Rapids. I do no fire stuff outside of Grand Rapids. This is my only opinion. I'm here just to offer some context to some of the things that I had heard. So, no recommendations. This is your fire district. You run it like you want to. I have no part in it. It's simply me being a municipal fire chief in the city, and I do strategic planning as well. Strategic planning is great for that 3 to 5 year vision when you're looking down the road. Chris brought to me, Deputy Chief Mantles brought to me a lot of different things in this area that you're considering. And I simply said, hey, you might want to slow down just a minute and proceed cautiously if you're getting ready to go down the road of some major capital projects. So I currently have 2 fire stations under construction and a training center under construction. It took 10 years. Now, this is City of Grand Rapids. We do things much slower. It took 10 years from the time we identified the need for one of those stations till construction started. Part of that was funding. Part of it was to make sure the trend in the data was going to stay consistent, and it did. So we had infill in a certain part of our community. Our call metrics were getting worse, and we tried a few different things to level them out before building an additional station, and it just couldn't thwart the decline. So finally we pulled the trigger. We're building, we call it the Kendall Avenue Fire Station. It's an $8 million station. About $600 a square foot is what I'm running on that project. Another fire station I'm building right in the core of the city is a replacement fire station. That's a 2-story facility, and that one's running about $515 to $525 a square foot, because it's a 2-story, which is much more efficient. I'm also building a training center out on the edge of town, which is more of a steel post-frame commercial construction, pre-engineered metal building. That's much cheaper per square foot, but then it's all in how you finish it. So as we were talking, I said, hey, a strategic plan is great, but the first thing you have to do is get agreement on what service levels that this community wants. Because there's no point in Chris or somebody coming in to help you make a plan, and the plan doesn't line up with what you want as the board. So the board and the communities have to decide what service level they want. Now in Grand Rapids, we have response time goals in place for our first rig on scene. For our full effective response force, that's when we send a full assignment to a structure fire or an extrication or incidents that take a lot of different rigs. We have different goals for each of those, and we track all those. The community has agreed to those goals, and they say, hey, that's the level of service we want. So that's how that 12th fire station came about, is we have the goal of getting our first rig on scene in 7 minutes from the time 911 answers until we pull up. And it's 12 minutes for everyone else to show up, from the time they answer 911 until everyone shows up. I have parts of the city where we meet that 98% of the time. Down in that district, I was meeting it 53% of the time. So there was a big difference between how citizens in the core of the city were being treated versus out on the edge of the city. Now, I also have 3 other districts that aren't as dense, and so their metrics are in the 60s and 70 percentile range, but we don't run as many calls out there. So overall, in the whole scheme of things, that's acceptable to me as the fire chief, to the city when you look at how often that happens. So when we talked about what things could look like here, the conversation last week was, well, do we add on here, or do we look at potentially a second location? And I said, yes. Like, that's up to you, that's up to you, right? You know, that's up to you. I can tell you, just from walking through and looking, it doesn't take a doctor to notice that you're out of space here. Completely out of space. You're bursting at the seams. So, and I have a couple of places like that, and that's why we finally are consolidating out to that new training center location. So I have about 266,000 square foot under roof under my stations. I am adding 100,000 square foot training and maintenance shop out on the edge of town. That's how crowded we were. So I'm finally going to be able to take a lot of things, move them out to the edge of town, and free up some space. So for you, it's what level of service do you want? Are you good with the response times? So there's a speed and a weight of response. Speed is that first unit. On the far south end of town, down near where I live, it takes a lot longer to get the first rig down there than it does around this area, right? Is that acceptable to this township? It could be, right? It very well could be. So that's for you to decide, are you good with the response times of your first out rig versus response times of everyone turning out to a structure fire and getting to certain parts of your service area? Again, not for me to decide. I don't pay taxes here. I don't live here. I live south of here. But those are things to consider. So to me, the first step is deciding what level of service that you would like in your service areas, in the townships, in the cities. Then you can create a strategic plan to help get you there. You can't create a plan unless you know where you're going, okay? So to define what you want Saugatuck Township Fire to look like is really the first step. And that's you all coming together as a board and deciding, this is where our township needs to go, this is where the fire service needs to go, of course, with input from the subject matter experts, the fire chiefs and the firefighters here. They know the struggles way better than you do, far better than I do, You know, I don't know much about your system. Again, I know Greg, I know Chris, I've stopped by a few times, but outside of that, I'm an expert up in Grand Rapids, not out here. I don't do firefighting in the urban interface in more rural areas. That's not what I know. I know very dense urban area firefighting. So I would not be one to come out here and tell you how to do it, because I don't know how to do it out here. I have a completely different response model, completely different resources, completely different water supply. I have almost 10,000 hydrants in my city. I have 2 roads in all of Grand Rapids without water. 2 out of all the roads in Grand Rapids. So if you ask me to set up a water shuttle or a drop tank, yeah, I got nothing. I don't know how to do that, because we have hydrants every 250 foot. So really, it was just talking with the chiefs last week. It was, hey, if you look at the totality of what you might be spending in the next few years, to me, it's prudent to take 1 or 2% of that, and if you need to, get some outside perspective. We don't hire consultants in the Grand Rapids Fire Department because I have a planning division. I have people that crunch data all day and can tell me exactly where to put a fire station, can tell me the risk in the community. I have internal staff that can do that. I'm one of just a few fire departments in the state that can do that. Everyone else in the state has to have someone come in and help guide them down that path. Chris is more than equipped to do a strategic planning session for this board. He has all the tools, templates, and if I need to, I could swing by and help a little bit. So getting a plan done is that's not the hard part. The hard part is all that pre-work to decide, do you need to change? If the answer is yes, what do you want it to look like? And then develop that plan to get there. Now, realistically, timeline-wise, a strategic plan can be done in 6 to 8 months. You just take a little chunk each month, and you start working on it. You do some pre-work, and then you come together for a day, and you lay out the next 3 to 5 years for this jurisdiction. If you do go outside, plan on spending around $20,000 for a strategic planning consultant to come in. And if you wanted a standards of coverage or someone to come in and really evaluate your deployment, you're probably looking anywhere from 30, 40 on the low end to bigger cities will spend over $100,000 to have data people come in. I'm not suggesting that. I don't think you need to go that extent. I just wanted to give you a frame of reference of do what you can in-house. You have people here that know what they're doing. It might take a little longer to get there versus if you went outside and hired someone. Again, either option seems quite reasonable to me. Were you to add on here, or were you to look at a second location? Nothing sounded outside of the ordinary. It's just you have to decide what you want. So, Chief, certainly open to any questions this board may have. And thanks for letting me swing by on the way home. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Board, do you have any questions? That's a help, Chief.
Yeah, not at this point, but I think as we go on.
Good info.
Yeah.
I was interested, our response times are very comparable.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
amazingly comparable.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, and it's so different. So my downtown station has a 3/4 square mile district, runs 17 runs a day. It takes me about 1 minute to drive to a call and about 6 minutes to get up to the patient. Where out here, you could drive for 6 minutes and then walk to the patient in a minute. So yeah, they are very, very similar. It's just a different context. Yeah.
So it's nice for us, I mean, it's nice for me, I'll speak for myself, to know that you guys aren't doing something in 20% of the amount of time that we do it.
Yeah.
Or that we're way off.
No.
People would expect, you know, but they're almost right on top of one another.
Now, the other thing to consider, that Chris and I talked about and with Chief last week, you're also very different where I get events weekly that bring in 30, 40, 50,000 people to the city. We don't staff up for that. I have enough core units downtown And they do staff up ambulances, AMR and life, that we can handle that. This is a very different town in the summer. And I hate to say it, I try to avoid it.
We all do.
Yeah.
So, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I try to stay away. The rest of the year, I love it. We come eat down here all the time, I love it down here. But it is a very different place in the summer. And so that's something you could also look at is how you staff and respond during the peak times versus the off-peak times. That's very common for wildland firefighting and tourist cities as well.
Who determines the level of service or your expectations? Is that, the city council, or how do they go about
Yeah.
getting that information?
Yeah, so generally, it'd be the fire chief is the subject matter expert. So the city relies on me as the fire chief in Grand Rapids to really look at comparable agencies, comparable demographics, national standards, and then what we're comfortable with locally. And I go to the city manager and say, sir, based on all these factors, here are my recommendations, and here's how we're currently meeting them, and here's how I think we're going to address those gaps. And so that's something where you would rely on the fire chief and his expertise and knowledge of this area to really bring the suggestion to you, and then you would go out to the community and ask them, is this good for you? Like we survey the community when we do strategic planning and say, here's our current level of service, and then we have open-ended questions, good, better, or different. What's the Saugatuck Township Fire Department doing good? What do they need to do better at? What do you think they should do differently? Those three questions will give you a wealth of information to pull from. And you have a very educated, smart population here that is not afraid to give you feedback.
But we also have a unique situation
You do.
because we have, 5,000-6,000 year-round residents,
Yeah,
which demand one type of service.
correct.
And in June, July, August, where none of us want to be downtown, it triples
Absolutely.
and demands another set, which they aren't taxpayers,
Correct.
which is the challenge.
But Greg and I just had this discussion, a half an hour ago about, you go, and I've seen this over the years, well, we'll just wait till winter and we'll take care of that. Well, now winter seems to have as much call as summer, it's just a different call.
Yeah.
So we need to balance that out, reorganize for the winter, do the winter different than we do the summer, so there's no downtime in summer.
Not anymore, not anymore. So my calls are pretty steady throughout the year. I'm sure you saw in the news, we had 3 separate fatal fires 2 weeks ago. Very rough week for the city.
Yeah.
We run 25,000 calls. Every day, we're busy. The unit hour utilization is something I talked about with Chris. It's looking at not only the type of call, but how long you're out on the call. And I can tell you, with your highway running right through here, you're out there a while on those calls, as you should be, protecting the motoring public and the first responders. But a medical call may take you 15, 20, 30 minutes. A call on the highway or a structure fire might be 4 hours. Very different workload demands. And so as you look at your call volume from the winter, I would imagine you're on the highway much more, but during the summer, you have the population you're dealing with. So probably a similar workload as far as amount, but the types of work is vastly different. So this is a pretty dynamic little community. You have a lot of everything here. You really do.
All good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Thank you.
You're heading in the right direction. My only recommendation is slow down just a bit, and you go slow to go fast. Spend a little more time up front to get the data and the planning right, and then when you make that decision, it's going to be the right decision for you and for this community.
Well, we might be a little ahead of the game, because God knows we have data. Greg can tell you anything you want to know about this fire department at the drop of a hat, can you not?
But you said that, but also I've been on this board for many years, And even when I first got on the board, we talked about how to expand
Yeah.
and what's gonna be needed in the future.
Mhm.
Here we are 16 years later, still talking about it. And really,
Yeah.
nothing's been done in that 16 years.
Right.
Except new equipment, a few new people. But,
And sometimes that's where having that outside person come in and validate where you want to go is worth it. It's not that you don't know where you need to go or what you need to do, but sometimes having that third party, and not me, I'm just driving through, but having a third party come in and say, you're on the right track. This situation absolutely warrants this amount of resources. This is in line with best practices. We agree. Sometimes that's all you need to take that step forward.
Chief, I remember the legendary Billy Goldfeder, who was very influential in my career. He has always said, you need to determine what level of service your residents want.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much a standard if you want to go places in the fire service.
Yeah.
What do the people want, will they support it? So
Yeah.
appreciate those words.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna head to Saugatuck Chiropractic for my chiro. If you need anything, let me know.
tell Betsy I said aye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Take care.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so where do we start? I think we need to, that's my opinion, we need to slow down on hiring outside. I think Chris knows a lot. I'm just getting that impression. And if he feels overwhelmed, then maybe we could consider going, or if there's an area he doesn't know anything about. But my opinion is I'd like to start with Chris rather than go out first.
Up to the board, I've been thinking about, if I could just share briefly, I think it would start with acquiring the data on response time to the southeast part of the district, and like Chief Brown had said, well, it's acceptable in some of his areas because it might be a 15-minute response time to the southeast quadrants towards Fenville. Acceptable, density and all that, all I know is what the averages are, between 6 and 7 minutes that we're there. Again, what he pointed out is, you aren't supposed to fight a fire with 4 or 5 people. Some people take their on-scene time where one person's there. I made it there in 5 minutes. And a PA is 14 firefighters. Getting 14 firefighters is not always attainable here,
No, I wouldn't.
even with 4 mutual aid contracts. So, those are the things we gotta look at, find out how do we disseminate that and present it to you. And, I think we kinda drafted a survey with Aaron Miller when we were talking about, what do you want? And for some reason, I think COVID came, we never sent it out. But a lot of those things, we have, as you know, Eric Kirchhoff has data that is infinite, and I think that we can certainly handle that aspect to it.
I think so too, yeah. Rather than spending all that money. I mean, if we had you.
There's a time for it, you get to a point where, okay, I need affirmation that,
Right.
all right, we need to build down there.
Yes.
Because we don't own property down there.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things to talk about, but I think it starts with data accumulation and analyzing it. And what do people expect, an ambulance to be there within 25 minutes? We do. There are just things to find out what the goals of the fire board are.
I think it was clear that he works on satisfying the needs and the expectations of the community and the service level, and how to figure out what that is required here is gonna be a challenge. I have brought up, our year-round residents are 7,000 people, I'm guessing, whatever, but it doubles in the summer.
Well, and the doubling part is with people we virtually can't survey on this,
Right.
because we don't know who they are, right?
Right.
And if you surveyed it,
And depending, and even if you knew, you're gonna put a weighting on, yeah, but you're not gonna pay, of course you want this, and this, you're not gonna pay dick for it, so.
and the 7,000 that you do service will say, well, we're not gonna pay for the rest of them to show up. Let the township, or let the businesses that profit from it the bed and breakfast, not bed and breakfast, the rentals that profit from it, let them pay for it. They require the service. You know, I think if we sent out a survey and everyone in this area responded, which is impossible, I would say that the feedback about this fire department would be outstanding.
I agree with you.
Response time, now the ambulance here, I think everyone, I don't think there'd be a complaint.
On every measure, professionalism, leadership, equipment, the whole, I've not heard, and I've been on this for whatever, 6, 8 years, whatever it's been, not a single, you know what, they should, you know, you should be doing more of this, or how come they did that? Nothing. And anytime I talk to somebody, and, including somebody last week at Phil's who had an ambulance call at their house and life call at their house, you guys too, I said, oh, she said they were great. They were just wonderful. And the guys in the ambulance were just wonderful. And the guys showed up right away. That's the only thing I hear. So, you know, I mean, it's a wonderful tribute to having gotten it clearly right for quite a long time, I would say.
Yeah, I always
No,
hear
I do
about
too.
the first
I agree.
responders are so incredibly kind. That's the first thing I always hear, and they're always so respectful. I have heard one complaint, but she doesn't count. And
I've had one too, and I sort of,
but I think,
I kind of dismiss what he has to say most of the time.
but I think,
But he's sitting there saying it in front of other people,
Yep.
and I have to step in, and then it doesn't work really well, but I do it anyway.
I understand.
I really don't like consultants. Consultants just take your information, put it in a grinder, do a little fill in the blank, and give it back to you. So, you know, I think this starts with Greg, and I think, you know, we have to look at what you feel the need is for the community. And, you know, Mr. Brown can say what he wants to say, but he's king of the castle. We aren't king here because we have all these mutual aid partners that we have to throw into the mix, which is not always easy. And there's lots of disagreement between our mutual aid partners. I think I don't speak out of line about that. And
Different resources, different methods.
and they don't always join in to whatever it is that we need. So financially, we're not in charge of the whole thing. Politically, we're not in charge,
I
so.
think just trying to explain to any consultant the
Okay.
idiosyncrasies of this
part.
district
Yeah, it's different, so different.
is a nightmarish thought. I mean, I wouldn't want to be part of that. You could go on and on and on, and what we own and what we don't own, and the way it used to be, and you know, how far this is from that, and how dense this is versus this, and the summer that, I mean, by the time you're finished, I mean, you're gonna have educated one guy, a consultant, to a level that we already have. We've got it.
Yeah.
You carry it around in your head. I mean,
Chris and
and
Eric?
so, I mean, I've been party to seeing consultants paid a lot of money, and
Yeah,
as
that's-
the old adage goes, you pay them to look at your watch and tell you what time it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can do it without consultants.
Yeah, that's what
I think,
I honestly, I mean, I think you hire a consultant when you have a big, I don't frickin' know. I don't know how, why, how come, what, I don't, in this, I don't know what that is. What's the big unknown here?
there isn't one. I don't think there is one.
I mean, you know, the big decision, so it may be accusing us of being farther down the track earlier than we should be, but clearly, one of the big first cuts is here, or here and someplace else, in terms of facilities. Answer that question first, because keeping that question open for too long is gonna be just wasting
we
a
have
ton
to
of
decide
time
where
and
we're gonna
effort.
go from there.
And I think we can do that.
I think we can too. Yeah.
And in all faithfulness to the community and faithfulness to the financial challenges of the community and limitations of fire district, we can do that. Again, yeah, you could explain that to a consultant. I don't want to go to all those meetings, quite honestly.
No, oh God, no. Been to those
I think
meetings.
there's a lot of the work we could do, and you might get to a point where, for a partial consultant fee, you know, you scale it back and say, this is what I need, here's the data, you know, you can evaluate that when we get to that point.
I think the consulting fee at this point would just be about CYA to the communities. And if we do the due diligence and lay it out, why do we need to cover our rear ends?
I'm not,
We
yeah,
did it.
and I'm not saying we don't need a plan, because I think we do need a plan.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to articulate it, we need to support it, and whatever, just for that reason alone. And we owe it to ourselves, to say, here's what we think, here's how it makes sense to us, in some level of detail with whatever data is appropriate, and then that gets presented to the community.
Yeah, what?
And they'll all come back here, oh, wait a minute, none of them come back here. They'll just say, yeah, you guys are doing a great job, keep it up.
Yeah, it always is something to me of how few people understand how government runs
Oh, well.
and
yeah.
what people do. And, I mean, there's probably not half a dozen people outside of this commission that actually knows what the fire department does and what they need. And as he was speaking, I'm thinking, well, we got the first one done, we got the second one done, we've got the third one done. Now, I mean, we have all the data that anybody could possibly need about anything. All we have to do is look at it a little more intensely, and Greg can lead us through that. So I think we're way ahead of the game. My feeling is the first thing we have to do is what happens, you have to go to the township and ask them about south of here, what we can do with that woods. Can we get a variance? Can we use that woods? And then cut all the trees down and use it for a fire department. I can't believe anybody would object to that, but maybe they do. So I think that's number one.
What
is
woods are you
figuring-
talking on?
This.
No, right here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right next to the-
Your point, I didn't know what you were
I guess-
talking
I guess
about. No,
the-
what?
I guess the other thing that kind of struck me when he was talking is building a training facility off-site. We have the training facility right here on ground that we own.
Yeah.
Is that a good use of property if we don't want to move out of here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, do we
Do we
want
move
that
that somewhere else on real inexpensive land with some parking, which there is none, but you know what I'm saying?
With the
is
pole barn and whole classes in.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
We gotta think outside the box. I don't think you can't turn your mind off to anything. I still think some of these buildings that are around here, if we could get to the right people at Safe Harbor and do some trading, and that would be fantastic to make this more.
I intend to
It's a
look at
mess.
the safe harbor, what I make a couple minutes? So, the back building, we call it the back barn,
Yeah.
okay? So I went to Lene, who's a genius and very helpful about what can we do to enlarge that building?
Who is this?
Lene, the zoning administrator of the
Okay.
township. And she said, well, there's 40-foot setbacks. What does that mean specifically? Well, it means on the property line, which is boundary, you have to go back 40 feet. I said, it's unbuildable. She said, well, we could probably go 20 feet. Nope, I want zero clearance, or it's a waste of time. So she said, well, you might be able to appeal that, and, you know, the pulse of that is maybe we could work on that. So then I called Daniel about this lot, because I said, you know, we've got this 40-foot issue with the trees. Daniel said this corridor is gonna be changed. They're working on reducing that.
Yes, they are.
So, and Lene had said, I don't think the planning commission would not recommend to the township that they revisit that, so that you can do this. Again, that would be one hurdle to this. The other issue is, just like we pointed out in the Board of Appeals, so we have these plans to build a station here, we put drive-through doors, and this guy puts up a fence. We can't go that direction until we have something ironclad. So that's why I fielded Lene, I went to Daniel on this. Daniel's very positive about all this. So the corridor is gonna be changed, it'll be relaxed. And then my next step was, I decided Saturday, after talking to Daniel, I'm gonna talk to Safe Harbor and say, can you just give me a free easement? Because you're selling this. I don't wanna buy anything. and take that posture and see who we could talk to find out how far do we get, who do we talk to, because I think they're headquartered in Texas.
And the easement you want is where?
So if you built next door,
Yeah,
Jake, it's the gravel right here. It's behind the building between this building and the vacant lot.
Okay.
You can't take trucks and pull up on Blue Star because you won't have enough room. You pull up on Blue Star to back in there, we would have to have stoplights installed. So it would not be wise to build ones you back into, assuming you're gonna build more than 3 bays. So if you're gonna build a couple of them down here, a 2-story, as I've tried to allude to, building a 2-story is a lot more economical than a 1-story. So you utilize this, and then you sell this thing off or whatever.
or
you know,
trade it to them even for the easement.
Whatever. So that's what I'm looking at, because that 40-foot pin is right here,
Yeah.
where this is. You can't do any of that. Well, then if I have a 20-foot setback here, it's unbuildable.
And
That's
thi- and this
unbuildable.
is the,
Owned by Safe Harbor, that Safe Harbor owns to here. My only easement is here and here. And this easement was designed to move down here. I know you guys can't see that.
We have an easement now.
We have an easement where they drive through here.
Okay.
That would be relocated to the south if you built onto this building, if you attached it.
Okay.
Right. So what you're dealing with is, kind of relates to the BOA, if you're gonna build, the requirements change with setbacks. What the back building is non-conforming. It's not conforming, it's probably 70 to 80 years old.
Mhm.
So it
But
would be
once you
unbuildable.
change it, it has to become conforming. You could,
Exactly. So, if you, what was I gonna say? It's like this BOA appeal that we have right now. The guy didn't set the table. He didn't bring into account 700, 800 foot of driveway. He's not setting the table to make it a safe place to live. When I talked to him, he didn't even know that sewer and water was right next to him. He just went after the fire department, trying to do it the easy way, which he found out wasn't real easy. But you have to set the table, you have to set up where you're gonna do business and where you're gonna build. So right now, we need to set the table. We need to know exactly what we have, what easements we could possibly get, and how we could do this. Because probably the easiest thing would be to just add on to the building going this way, going south, and just make it further down. But you gotta set the table, so,
And I didn't know how to appeal it to go that far, because generally, last time we appealed something was for the sign,
right.
and the township charged us $400. Daniel said he would try to talk to the board.
It's a different township now.
Right, and not charge us. Whether it's $400 or not, it's not a deal breaker.
Right,
I didn't know what to appeal because I don't have a plan.
right.
So it's kind of a conundrum on, well, are we going this way, or are we going this way, or are we going back there? We'll hone it down.
do I understand correctly that from an operational standpoint, if this is gonna be one facility adding on, you would prefer that it have drive-through bays?
If we
And
go to
op-
the south.
And open
Yes.
direct to Blue Star, rather
We go to
than-
the south.
rather than dicking around with trucks coming from the back and trying to get around.
It's acceptable, yeah, I mean, we have 2 bays we pull out, we're facing that way. You know, the back barn, that's acceptable to pull out, but because they're not on Blue Star Highway. So that's acceptable. If you're gonna build it to the south, it needs to be a drive-through. That'd be my strong recommendation. I would not see how you could do it any other way. So it doesn't mean it can't be done. We worked on it 5 years, and then RJ passed away, and then we were working on it with Brian, and Brian resigned as general manager. So I lost all those contacts.
So the
We'll whittle it down.
first thing we should be doing is deciding what we wanna do exactly, and then going after the easement?
Well, I think what you have to consider, True, is, do we want the whole entire facility here? Or does data and the community support a station down there? You know, my tendency, this right or wrong, my tendency is work on the property we already own.
I agree totally
Because the
with
price
that.
of people want for property is certifiably nuts.
No, I think.
And I don't know how you're gonna do that. You know, I'm coming in at $260 a foot to build a station by Morton. That's completely doable. They're selling houses here for $360 a foot.
Or more.
Can't we just
Yeah.
have Douglas do
Yeah, I
an
agree.
eminent domain,
Yeah.
and we'll just take over some property and,
Work with that.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, the only advantage of having something south, can I call it south of the bridge?
There are advantages.
Yes, because that would bring the expectation up of Douglas, their expectation and our response times way down there. And it'd be advantageous to them to have something down there.
That's why I wouldn't wanna rule out that, because the guys, you know, Linus, Chris, a couple of them have said, we ought to build a station. Okay, you know, if you build 2 bays, you're never gonna build 2 bays. 2 bays. You're gonna build 4, okay? So you're gonna build those 2, oh, do we have sleeping rooms there? Do we have a kitchen? Oh, it's gotta be a fire-rated pump, 'cause it's gotta be suppressed. Oh, there's no sewer, in septic.
I know, I just.
Built projects before, and those things, the way costs are now, don't frighten me. They're like, oh man, they stop me. Because you can't just put a duty officer vehicle there and an engine. It's gotta be an EMS vehicle, a tanker and an engine. Do they sleep there?
Do you need full-time personnel there?
See that?
And, I mean, even backing up, I'm sure I don't watch them as close as you watch, but the Douglas response times are not dramatically different from the Saugatuck response times. I mean, I don't even think they're different by a minute, but I could be wrong about that.
I think it's less than a minute.
Yeah. I mean, you want shitty response times, just nature of the beast. The ones in your letter going across Ferry Street and going out to
The peninsula.
the peninsula to, you know, drive through these winding streets with people and cars and all the rest of it, that, you know, that doubles with response times. But that's not gonna be solved by putting it closer, they're still gonna have to negotiate all that, so.
Another consideration, when we were talking about ravines, okay, we're talking about that area, the people who bought the Butler, who own the ravines, wanted to build 30 more houses. Well, the infrastructure can't support it. They were supposed to put in, the township was supposed to put in a water tower at 150 houses. They're well over that. In that conversation, we were talking with the zoning administrator, and by law, anything agricultural can be transferred over to residential. And Lene said, this whole area by ravines is agriculture, is ripe for development. So you've got that to contend with. You also have people building more and more subdivisions down south because the land is available. And they put in a septic and sewer, completely acceptable. So you have to look at where's the available space. Salt Lake City's built out. So you gotta take into your analysis, where's the buildable property for a builder to build 8 to 15 houses? Southeast. So
Or
a station there
east.
might be wise. And then instead of having 5 here, you gotta have 3 down there and 3 here.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you, like Waverly and Collin Park Station, you do the calls together when necessary. So those are things that I think you would consider. There may be merit to it, just the price of the property is what scared me, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be considered. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You might.
I think there's plenty of room here but this is a mess.
Yes.
It really is. And speaking of that, did you ever ask about sewer and water for this station?
Yeah, it's $130 a foot. Well, that's for
What-
water. I didn't get the price on the sewer yet. I have to go to other people for the sewer.
That has to be done.
It's gonna be needed, yeah.
Yeah, that just gets rolled in here. so
Yeah,
it's
it would be,
Has to
yeah,
be done.
right, right.
Okay, so where do we start?
I think you start with, what level of service do you want? To do that, to me, you start what level of service. Here's the average response time, and we can pull the data and say, okay, in this area, it's this amount of minutes, you know? And that might steer you towards, oh, we're happy the way it is, or we want something better. How do we achieve that? Proximity?
So we should maybe set the next meeting up to see all the data before we do anything else, see all the data.
I think you need first to survey the community.
Survey the community first?
Right. Do a survey monkey and send that out and say, and only expect maybe a 20% response on that.
Oh, yeah.
But nonetheless, that's the way surveys are.
Yeah.
And you do a survey and about what level of service, and you kind of say, do you want this? Do you want 6 minutes? Do you want 10 minutes? What do you want?
What are you
that's
willing to
gonna-
pay for?
Yeah, there you go.
What are people willing to pay for?
That's the problem with surveys too, because that part gets ignored.
'Cause
No,
most-
I want it 6 minutes? No, I'd like it to be 3 minutes. If I'm dying, maybe even
Right.
2 minutes would be good.
Yeah.
Not knowing that you've just taken the cost scale and basically want you to have a frickin' truck sitting in their backyard at the extreme. And you can't do that.
That's why response times are real important to me south of the bridge. Why? Home for the Aged Housing, healthcare facility, and the elementary school. That's what scared me about what happened in Douglas with one lane. But you can see we've got a 1 minute, so we are plowing through that. We've overcome that. Not ideal, but it's the best we can do.
I mean, I think there's two trains of thought, you know. It's like going to your doctor and telling him what you want, instead of him telling you what you need. So we can ask everyone, like you said, they're gonna tell you what they want. Put a truck in my yard, put a fire hydrant, I want this. But what we're gonna have to do is tell them what they need, and, you know.
I agree.
And that's why I'm not sure, but I don't know that going to the public at the first
Yeah.
is necessarily the right move.
I agree.
I mean, in a sense, they've hired us and you to be the thought leaders on providing this service. I don't think we could just turn that over to them who know nothing about it.
I think surveys are really, really difficult to put together in an unbiased way too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember we were working on a project for a long time, we spent forever developing this survey, and we took it to the expert to review it before we sent it out, and said, what are you gonna do with this information? You know, it's like, why do you wanna know this? And so we went through and we changed the whole thing, but I think they're difficult unless you really, really know what you're doing.
I think
You know,
if we make our best shot collectively at a plan, based on what we know, based on data that we have, and present it to them, and say, here's, down to, I mean, if it got to this, whether it will or not, here's the location, here's, what we would need to build it, the blah, 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 get all the way down to that, justify it, and present it to them.
This is the best bang for your buck.
And if the community, which I strongly doubt, based on the goodwill that they've already shown toward the department, and the fire district in general, I can't imagine there'd be 3% who'd scream bloody murder.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think and I said it earlier, you ask anyone, they're extremely happy with what's going on here. The only bitch I've ever heard in my years here is, boy, you guys got a lot of equipment. I said, yeah, until we need something else.
Right.
I mean, and then you have to justify it, you talk them through it, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, when they don't think about, you know, you have to go out in the water, you
Yeah.
have to go through the dunes, you know. you
Gotta
have
be on
to-
that damn highway in the snowstorm.
Yeah,
You know.
I was tempted with him up there to talk some about capabilities and whatever, because I was gonna ask him point blank how much work they do on the highways in
Oh
Grand
my
Rapids.
God, they do a ton of work on the highways.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's all
They have
through
quite
the
a few
city.
of them.
They lease their attenuators because they get hit all the time.
They don't just
Have you
look-
seen that S-curve? What genius
Oh,
came
yeah.
up with
I
that?
don't know.
Good old S curve.
I don't know what they have
So,
there, but
what
they have a
I'm-
river, so they do a lot of
Yeah, they,
unusual things also.
But anyway, I think we can put something reasonable together, and maybe even, you know, focus group test it with, you know, with the 3 communities, some, you know, 8 or 10 people, not
We can
half
do
a
that at the
thousand.
Cove.
Yeah.
We'll do that around there.
Show them the data, show them, you know, what we're up against, show them costs, show them $250 a square foot or whatever the hell it is versus $900 a square foot, and why we don't wanna do this. Answer a lot of questions before the questions even get
I
asked.
agree, I think we should get a lot more together before we send a survey out.
And I think it's doable.
And I think our first step maybe is to look at all the data at the next workshop meeting.
I don't think we need to look at the data. I think Greg needs to look at the data.
We
We have a
Alright, the-
shit
We get the
ton-
data every week.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you
there.
know.
I'll get with the staff, the command staff, and we'll figure out.
I think the most common sense thing to do here is to figure out this puzzle and try to make it work here.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
agree, yeah, I agree.
And the other side of the coin is, you know, Blythe puts an ambulance here all the time. If we need someone on the south side of town, why don't we have a duty officer hanging around down there or whatever?
Where down there?
Park at the city hall.
City Hall?
I'm just saying, just, if there's a presence, if we need it. I mean, probably summertime.
But the only, I'd wanna, honestly, I'd want more of a data-based reason for that than we have seen so far. Because once you do that, then you've opened up a line of thought that says, oh, if they're a little closer to me, if they're closer to me by 4 miles, I'm much better off. Okay, get ready for your next fire station,
Yeah.
somewhere out on Old Allegan Road,
Yeah.
closer to the dune, or not the dunes, what is it?
Dune grass?
No, the development you were talking about. the
Ravine.
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 Put a fire station out here, it takes them forever to get past 64th Street, blah, 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 blah.
On and on and on.
Yeah, whereas maintaining a center of excellence, I think there's a strong rationale for that outside of fire district and this kind of stuff. It's where it gives people a mental frame, you can maintain control over people, you can maintain control over assets, maintain standards, much easier in one place than in 2 places.
Well, and as Greg says, go to the subject matter expert. He's the subject matter expert, but he makes us subject matter experts too, because he gives us a lot of information that the community doesn't have, nor do they understand, nor do they want to take the time to understand. Because if they wanted to take the time to understand, they'd be here. So,
And I will tell you, I don't personally have stomach for 5 years of this stuff.
no.
We need to be
No, I
doing
would-
something long before 5 years
Way
is up.
before 5 years, yeah.
I don't know if I have the lifespan to wait.
Oh, that too. We can all say that.
So anyway,
Not
maybe we should.
No, we determined last time I'm just as old.
Oh.
I just look better.
Well, you're older.
No, I'm as old as that.
Okay.
No, not you.
Let's go
You're
back to
young.
the video, 'cause you got that on video last time.
Yeah, we know that.
Hey, I'm the oldest here, so listen to me.
All right, we don't need a senior citizen discussion tonight.
Mhm.
So, why don't we we've done this to death for tonight, so why don't we move on to unfinished business?
Sure. If I may, the truck inventory, a little more description, that's on page 2, right here. And what we try to do is Eric and I try to add, what the truck number is, like it's an engine. 2111 is an engine that goes out to auto aid, mutual aid, so we don't leave our area engineless, and so forth. TMA, you all know what that is. And it just shows what these are. That's what we added on to this, Eric. We revised it, we updated it. For example, there was a mistake in one of the trucks that showed we put 90,000 miles on it last year, and Eric and I caught that. So this apparatus inventory tries to provide a description and keep this on one page of what vehicles are. Your brush PU is pickup truck, brush pickup truck, tanker, tower, so on and so forth. That was the goal.
Okay, anybody got any questions about that?
What's the number of the new transport?
2161, right?
Correct.
So we had to put $13,000 into it since we've gotten it, like in maintenance?
That was, we bought it for 40, and then we had to do some things, like the
Okay, that's what was
graphics.
included in that,
Right.
okay.
Right.
That's a lot of calls for that truck.
It goes to all of them, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the first out the door, 2161. The other one, you look at 2120, the fourth from the top, that's been out 20 times.
Okay.
So that's what that is. That was a request, and then the next item would be personnel proximity to the station. This was something I think that was prompted by Kathy. It was time to update this, and it just shows where people live. And I think I pointed out in an email, you can see that there are more people that live out of the area this year than did in 2023. So.
Yeah,
And it
I was
just shows
quite
you-
shocked that he lived in Ganges and works in Grand Rapids as a fire chief. That shocked me.
Yeah, but he's administrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think the administrative people there would have to live, not with anything even near it, but
I
anyway,
know.
they don't, obviously.
I don't believe he goes back. But they have 290 people or something. So this is, the roster profile, that was updated. Thanks for bringing that, Kathy. It was time to do it. Then the next, we have, we don't have a draft to present you, but I can assure you that Eric is on vacation in California. We've been working on this 2 weekends in a row. There'll be a media release for the awards presentation that we didn't do the CPR. Usually when we put that together, Scott kind of cannibalizes it for preservation of space we're not paying for in the paper. So we don't know. We gave them all the officers, we gave them firefighter of the year, EMS, along with photos. So we'll see what he comes up. Probably will come out Wednesday, I'm thinking, because it was sent to him Sunday.
I wasn't there, did you do the saves? Do you still do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It mics up to 7 saves, they don't even make a pin for that. We just...
Certainly made it.
Maybe we should start over with the next pin.
Yep. So that is to come, to see that.
Okay.
Then the next item we had was, this was what we tabled the discussion on replacing 2173. That's the truck that's 2015, that we recommended if we are gonna replace it, we replace it with a new cabin chassis and a refurbished box. We don't know what the tariffs will have, if they have any impact on this. But what we used on this, we usually don't do this, but Chris dug deep into this. I put my content into this, and where I found success is the cost benefit on page 7, the cost benefit. This was a deal breaker. I learned this when I got flown out to New York for peer review of FEMA grants. What does it cost? What does it cost? So Stacy, as a resident in the township, it's gonna cost you, you know, $6.73 for 7 years. So $50. And that seems to resonate with people. And that's what FEMA's always looking for. These people don't care what you want. They wanna know how's it gonna affect their wallet. So we did it with air packs. We did it with most of our FEMA grants. So FEMA grants now are a rarity. So that was one of the things that Chris interjected in this, and but brilliant.
Not to be the devil's advocate.
No.
But I have to be.
Yep.
I always got a chuckle out of when the school said, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna cost you
Cup of coffee.
this much for $100,000 value. And
Yep.
then the next thing comes up, and it's gonna cost you this much.
Yep.
And before you know it, there's 72 of those things
Yep.
costing
I
you
know.
a couple $100,000, or a couple
Yep.
hundred a month. So, I mean, I appreciate this, and this is good to have.
No, I understand that.
The school is notorious for it.
Everything costs more.
Right.
You know, I'm having this conversation with Vicki. Everything costs more. Oh my God, you're paying $100 a month for internet and cable. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I don't know what to say.
Tell her you're stealing
I'm
it.
driving a 24-year-old truck. Her car's 8 years old. I don't know what to say.
Well maintained though.
So,
So, you caught that, I'm glad. So, you know, so it is, you know, I mean, we brought this to you when it was $165,000. You didn't like it then. So you're $100,000 more. I don't know what to tell you. You know, I do not recommend a used vehicle, but I don't want to dwell on this. I remain convinced this is the thing to do, whether you transport or not. You know, Mike just shared with me, so that's what he's gonna try to do in Ganges, is get a vehicle we can put people in. We missed that when we got rid of our heavy rescue. Can't really treat people in assessment inside a Ford Expedition. We learned. Great access, they get in everywhere. However, is it best for patient care? Hell no. Absolutely not. We can get 3 or 4 people in the back of these trucks. And that's what I like. And you know, the way the motor vehicle incident calls are going, it's not uncommon to have 2 patients.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Whether it's 80 degrees out or 20 degrees out, they have a better chance of recovery if you get them out of the elements. So as you know, you've got a 2009 truck. I recommend that if you did this one, when it was built, would go to the front line. And the one we paid $53,000 for, that would be the second line. We always have to have at least 3 EMS vehicles because of the call volume and the back-to-back calls. And this would be one of those 3. 2173 2015 Ford Expedition would be sold. It
What
would
do you
not be
think the
kept.
value of that is?
5, 6, 7,000.
Let me tell you, you might get more than that.
you might, but you
You might get
Used cars
10,000
are
for it.
crazy again.
5,000, I heard you.
Hmm?
I'll go get some money right now.
See?
I just been teasing you about.
You have more money in Ganges than we do here.
No, I'll buy it for me right now, you said it, 5,000.
Well, if you want an old rust bucket for $5,000, I guess, you know, that's something
Offer,
to talk about.
acceptance, money's gotta transfer, or there's no deal, and it has to transfer at the same time.
Sorry, I just had to pick on.
You're off the hook.
This is in the long-range plan.
It's in a capital improvement
Capital
plan.
improvement, thank you.
Also, 2 other trucks we're willing to forfeit that stuff. You know, we just ride that out longer, just like we got more miles and years out of the Ford Expeditions. You know, usually, you know, 5 7 years max is pretty much it. But, it served us well. It's just at a point where my job is to say, it's time to replace it, and it's time to,
I also
to consider.
won't be at the next meeting.
The real meeting?
No, wait, what's the real meeting?
17.
Oh, yes, I will. It's gonna stay on the 17th.
Yep.
Yes, I will be.
Where are we getting the money from to buy this truck? Is it in the capital fund?
So the capital plan and the fund balance.
Okay.
So this will be voted on the next meeting.
Right, yeah, you can't vote on it now.
Okay.
Just wanted to kind of, we table it, just wanted to, and I know it's a lot of money, I don't know, I have no answer for that, other than, next time you buy an engine, it's gonna be $1 million.
Of course it's a lot of money.
It's frightful.
Terrible.
Could
Thank
be a
you.
lot more than you know.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, that's all I had.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
I had some questions and Greg answered some for me earlier, so, yeah, we can't do that tonight, so,
Number 10, the business, yep.
Next.
So the next one, if I may, funny, what this is, this is obsolete key boxes, so we have, the fire department has Knox Keys, that's a brand. It allows us access to 100 and something locations. And the way we used to do this is, people carried a key on them. Well, with the fire code, it being a requirement, we required more and more Knox keys. So the fear was, I went to the insurance company, for those of you who were around back then, said, hey, are we covered if we lose a Knox key? It took them 7 months to respond. So that means the insurance would have to pay to rekey the schools, every one of the schools. And all the occupants had Knox key boxes. And it took them almost 7 months to render an opinion. They said, yeah, your general liability will cover it.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well, that's good. And then I got to the point where all the keys are coming back. So then, how do you handle that? So Knox has a system in the truck that the key is locked in there, you can't get it out, you put in your code, each person has a code, put it in, and you can take the code,
the key.
the key. Light flashes until you put it back in. That system was downloadable, so it would show, Taru took a key out on January 3rd, those key boxes are no longer supported. So now we're forced to replace them. We've already lost a couple of them. So that's the unfortunate part, and this is a funding request for your next meeting to replace the Knox key boxes that control those keys. And they're also wireless, you know.
And how much is
You
that?
said we've already lost a couple, you don't mean keys, you mean these boxes went down.
Boxes failed. And Knox won't support them. So it's
How
about
many do you need?
$15,000
How many do you-
investment.
How many do you get?
Hmm,
10?
interesting.
Hopefully. Right?
No, it's the whole line, so it's,
No, there's 10.
Okay.
There's 10, right. There's 10 units, then there's a
Then there's
mounting
brackets and all this
plate,
other
you
stuff.
know, yeah.
oh, okay.
So there's 10. Like $1,300 a piece, right? 1,208 plus, right?
Oh, we gotta buy 10 of these.
Yes. They have to replace in each truck.
Okay, all right.
And that's on for the next meeting.
Correct, correct.
All right. All right, moving on. Any questions about that? Moving on, there was no correspondence, any public comments? Got anything to say, Doug?
Wait.
Wait
Oh,
for
you talk
what?
big for money all of a sudden, now you have something to say. Where's the checkbook? Show me the money.
Yeah, well, I got money for you. You saw a truck for $5,000, I'll give you the money right now.
Cash.
We'll get it out of his boot. Okay.
That's just more fun to Well, we're doing better. Last time you told me 20, so we're down to 5 now.
I don't, a fire department, I would think it would be more valuable.
We're not
Plus,
fighting
it's
for a
got
fire
lights and
department,
everything.
just for myself.
Yeah,
You already bought the car.
I didn't know one.
you
Oh
never
my
have too
God.
many.
Okay, fire board comments. Stacy?
Nothing.
Eric?
No,
Dana?
Oh, I thought this was good discussion.
I thought so too. True?
I think we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I think I like the way we're moving towards it.
Excellent.
The one I was gonna offer is, oh,
And
good point.
I'd like to tell everybody, all the members, congratulations on all their awards.
awesome.
Good, you want, I'll tell them.
Okay,
I'll
thank
tell
you.
them. Thank you, I'll send out an email. This is about BLS, you know, are we gonna do BLS? We don't wanna do BLS transport unless we have to, okay? What happened yesterday? There were no ambulances. I had 3 phone calls today. One of them was from the chief of South Haven, Brendan Hintz. He was backing up, they have Life down there. He will not back up Life ambulance out of his area. There was a call in Douglas, and they dispatched South Haven, and South Haven says, we're not going. And then they're scrambling to get other ambulances. It turned out AMR took it. I think they went out to Plainwell.
They reached out to, what I understood was everybody's at, the call for Douglas came in, everybody's at level 0. Central Dispatch reached out to Plainwell, because Plainwell works with Life a lot on the east side of the county. Plainwell said that they're an hour away. And then that went to South Haven Fire. And then AMR was able to get a truck, they left the emergency room in that transition of getting South Haven dispatched, so they picked it up. So what happened in between there, I don't know.
AMR room in Holland?
Yeah. An AMR ambulance became available out of Holland Hospital
Okay.
in that timeline that they dispatched. More importantly, the thing to understand was the closest ambulance was South Haven Fire Department at
Right.
that moment. That's
the point.
That's
And they don't wanna leave their area. Number one, they have a funding mechanism, their residents pay a fee, a millage, and they don't wanna abandon it. They're dealing with, they have to get culvert then to cover their jurisdiction. And he wanted to make sure I was aware that it was, they meant no offense. So no, we knew this. He told me years ago, they were billing Life. Life won't pay them. They have an issue with Life. Life and AMR won't play well together. That's, my recommendation is we keep on course for those extenuating circumstances, transport when we have to. That's all.
Okay.
In which case, wouldn't we then bill the patient ourselves or through some third party, rather than
If
trying
we're-
to go through Life?
No, we're not gonna be able to do it through Life. What we would have to do is we would have to bill Medicare or whomever for the recovery of that cost.
There must be a-
Do we have that ability to do
I was
that?
gonna say,
Set it up.
there must be a service
Set it up.
that would do that.
There is,
Yeah.
there is a service, but what we...
I mean, you gotta pay for it.
What we hope to do, it's like 7%. What we hope to do is not transport, but on occasion. The thing is, we can have them there and back. Sometimes we're waiting for 45 minutes. We can't do anything, we can't leave. We can't do another call. So if it's gonna be over 25 minutes, that's the threshold. You take the patient in under the right vital conditions. It's not carte blanche.
We have to get licensed for that? or-
Not if we do it under extenuating circumstances. And that is the direction we'd like to take it. Then if we have to do the full-fledged BLS transport, we graduate to that. But this was the first occurrence I've had since, that I'm aware of, since they took over in July. And just because they're here today doesn't mean they wouldn't leave tomorrow, because we have nothing contractually to own them. It's kind of like the county and the sheriff's office. You can't keep a deputy here. So just want to let you know, we have them here, but we have no control over how long on when that'll be. So we still have to keep on course on, have a redundant plan. We have to load somebody back in to do it. Because the way it's going around here, the staffing levels of ALS aren't there.
It's sort of the nature of the beast, that depending on the stress levels, no amount of resources is enough.
Right. We need helicopters.
I mean, you have a 747 go down in this field over here, you know, it splits it apart, and half the people are alive and half are dead.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yep.
But what you had yesterday was, and please don't take this the wrong way, but it was everybody going to church and they were falling in their driveways across the county. If you could hear it, you could hear the radio traffic
Yeah,
across the county, that's what was happening. There was falls, and I believe the call that was in Douglas for us would have fell in that criteria of, very likely, we could have transported, like if we would have been, it could have been, no, relax the system, we'll take it. Let everybody catch their breath. I mean, sometimes when you're listening to this, listening to the radio traffic for the county, it's like cross your, I mean, I've had it come into work in the morning, cross your fingers, everybody behave themselves for 20 minutes, because there is nobody available to do anything. I don't know how you plan for that.
No, you can't plan.
You know, I don't know that any entity can.
Don't go to
So-
church.
Watch it on TV, for God's sake.
Right.
The only thing I'll say about that is, teaming up with Life, I think is a great thing, because they do their own training, as opposed to AMR trying to find them off the street, which is getting tougher and tougher.
Who do we have now? Who do we
Life.
switch?
Life.
Life,
And-
from AMR, from Life.
And I can share with you, they've been
That's what they.
utterly fantastic. I mean,
except for yesterday.
well, yeah, but that's
Just not
gonna
that
happen.
small.
That's not that bad.
It's not your fault. I mean, that's the thing, is it's not, you can't blame any agency, right?
Exactly.
And you can't, the one thing, at least I believe, in my opinion, is no for-profit agency is going to overstaff their company.
Absolutely.
It's just not gonna happen.
You know, and you got a priority 2 or priority 3 here, and one comes up, they're leaving the 2 or 3. They're going to 1. So, it's just something to keep in mind, that's how the system works. Nobody's gonna have an overabundance of ambulance. What we have going for us is the opportunity they were given, and they like to hang out here. You're a strategic location, and that's bankable, in my opinion.
Right. But occasionally it won't work.
But occasionally you're gonna have
Best
the...
laid plans.
Yeah.
But we didn't wanna start jumping into the whole BLS. We got the cot, if we have to do it, fine. Could be a firefighter.
Yeah.
Well,
Option from Life,
I will say, that's one of the things that I thought about with this truck is, we get this ambulance or transport vehicle, now we have to equip it.
We have
How
to
much
what?
is the stretcher?
How much is this?
I
How much
mean,
is that? Yeah.
We didn't have to buy one for the other one,
Right.
thank heavens. But we're gonna have to outfit this thing a little differently than what the Expedition is. But I still think we need it.
Okay,
Thanks.
do
Thanks
I
for
have a
letting me
motion
speak.
to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
A motion, a second to adjourn, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Fire Board.